we go.
Boy reviews.
Cut to my students falling asleep in class.
Spider-Man Far From Home is the 23rd film in the MCU. It's crazy that we've gotten 23 since 2008.
It's amazing.
And most of them are glorious.
Right.
None of them are horrible.
Whoa, I digress there.
None of them are horrible.
Listen, I'm talking to you, Thor, the Dark World.
It has some redeeming elements. But it is by far the worst. But we digress. We are going to give you our non-spoiler review for this film. So if you have not seen it, have no fear. There'll be no spoilers. And there's quite a few spoilers we could give. Spider-Man Far From Home, it picks up after the events of Endgame. And this has Peter Parker. He's on a European trip with his class.
Right.
It continues with the high school vibe. He's still in high school.
Right.
And it has some of the same characters. It has a few new characters as far as the high school. Maybe one new high school character friend.
Right.
And let's get into it. I felt like this movie was good, not great. Okay? And I feel like there's going to be a divide with this idea. It's not a bad movie by any means.
Right.
This movie is funny. This movie has tons of action. This movie has good acting as far as MCU acting goes.
Absolutely.
Tom Holland is awesome.
He's awesome.
Zendaya, if I
did a
say her
good
name
job.
wrong, I'm sorry.
She did a good job.
She's phenomenal. She's
Jake-
turning into one of my favorite young actresses out there.
Come on, Jake Gyllenhaal. He crushed it.
I'll say a few things about him later, but overall, he did a very good job.
Right.
Yes. We got Samuel L. Jackson. He's already in the trailers, so that's not a spoiler.
Right.
He does a good job. Everyone does a very good job. But for me, there was parts throughout this movie where I was bored. I really was. It wasn't like a short attention span thing. There's lots of stuff going on. And I actually appreciated the slower stuff in the first act with the high school and all that kind of stuff and them going on their trip. I enjoyed that stuff quite a bit.
Right.
But for me, some of the action sequences, for me, were kind of boring.
Right.
And I haven't really put my finger on why. We'll go more into it in our spoiler review that will be coming out in a few days.
Right.
But for me, it was just a little stale at times, and I was left wanting more.
Right.
It has 2 post-credit scenes, which are awesome. We can't get into it right now, so stick around to the very end for those.
Right.
I don't know. It was better than okay, but it wasn't great.
Right.
What are your thoughts?
Okay, here's the thing. I think that this movie serves as a true Spider-Man story, and actually, really, a lot of the Marvel comics, okay, they're not all like Infinity War. Okay? You can't just have a comic book where it's just, battle, huge action set piece. There has to be some exposition in there. There's got to be some world building. There's got to be some story building. And I felt like this was more of a character piece of Peter Parker, not necessarily Spider-Man. And one of the things, if you're a huge Spider-Man fan, he's a reluctant hero. Part of his arc is that because he didn't want to be a hero, he got his Uncle Ben killed. And he's always struggling with that reluctance of being a hero because he's putting his friends in danger. He's really giving up a lot of his youth, okay? He doesn't get to do things other normal kids get to do. And remember, he's only 16 here, so he is a kid. And that's a hard thing for him to juggle. I love this movie because it takes a step back from the massive piece and all the action. Infinity War was absolutely insane. Endgame at least slowed down in some pieces, but Infinity War, there is no bathroom time. Not even a little bit. That thing is crazy. We've actually watched both now several times, and I think Nick is right. Probably Infinity War is better than Endgame, even though Endgame is more... It's more emotional, pulls onto the heartstrings.
Endgame is amazing still,
It's an amazing film as well. But this one just slowed down. It's not and I think they even touch on that. This isn't Avengers level. They mentioned that the whole time. Now that's Avengers level. This isn't Avengers level. It's friendly neighborhood spider story. This is a small story contained in a smaller world. Because not everything that happens is going to be epic and world ending. But I liked it.
But see, I had no problem with the smaller scale. I really didn't.
Right.
I loved Homecoming.
Right.
I like Homecoming a lot more than this movie.
Right.
I like the high school movie. I'm a big fan of John Hughes and all his films, and the Homecoming felt like a John Hughes film.
Right.
And This one kind of followed that up, but it wasn't the small scale that bothered me. You mentioned the reluctant hero, and yes, I agree. Peter Parker is that character, but in Homecoming, he's the opposite of that. He's begging Tony Stark for something to do. He wants to get in the action. He even had some taste in Civil War, and he's like, dude, I can do more stuff than just the neighborhood stuff. Right. And I'm trying to figure, I understand Endgame happened and Infinity Wars happened and this or that. I'm trying to figure out why that changed. And the obvious answer is he died, his friends died, everyone died in Infinity Wars, and it kind of took him by surprise, and he wants to live his life now.
Right.
But for me, at least, I didn't see that explained in any way in the film.
Right.
And for me, I think there has to be I have a big problem with the screenwriting in this film. There has to be something to that where they just have a short conversation about it. But let's go to some positive stuff. MJ and Peter Parker, Zendaya and Tom Holland have great chemistry.
Absolutely.
I thought for sure they were dating in real life.
Right.
MJ's character is so much better in this one. I had no problem with her in the first one, but she doesn't do much. And she has that dark comedy level, and you don't get to see her too much, so you don't understand it. But in this movie, it all comes full circle for her. She does a great job. They do a great job, and the writing with the romance in this film is, for me, probably my favorite part of the entire movie. Not the action, not the MCU, not this or that, but just their romance. I love that, and I love the high school aspect a lot more than I liked the MCU action film part.
MJ was awesome. I really like the fact that they made her an intelligent character. Like, you know, he's coming to tell her, and I mean, this is not a spoiler because it's all over the previews, but he's coming to tell her actually that he's in love with her, and she goes, "Let me get your Spider-Man." I figured it out like 6-7 months ago. Like, that whole interaction was
I'm not sure why they
hilarious.
put that in the trailer, but anyways.
I know, they ruined it, but it was hilarious. But they made her a very intelligent character. She wasn't that damsel in distress, so I really like that. And you know what? A little props to my boy Ned. Ned was a scene stealer. His whole interaction, I mean, this whole movie,
his lines are great.
Give him a lot more to do. And yeah, you know, I think that it is more of a high school movie, more of a John Hughes type movie. I would say that I'm happy with the direction they went because, you know, you don't want to get too big with the story and continue to throw too many different elements in there because it's going to take fans a little while to grasp. And I don't want to, again, this is a non-spoiler review, so we'll talk about this in the spoiler review. But I'm glad with the practicality, I should say, of the story, okay? And that was awesome. I like Jake Gyllenhaal. I think he did a good job with this character. I think he captured the essence of Mysterio. We'll leave it at that. We'll talk about that a little bit more in our in our spoiler review. The only thing is, even with the post-credit scenes, man, it's like you're left with more questions than they answered, I think. And you're like, for me, I already knew, and I looked at them and said, this is where they're going next. But for people that aren't like super nerds that have read all the comics and, you know, watch the cartoons and, you know, go on the blog sites, like, they're gonna be lost. Like, what just happened? Wait, is it, you know? And again,
and that's why I go with this guy at all times. I always turn to him and say, "What does that mean?" Because that last post-credit scene, I had no idea what that was. I would have no idea unless this guy mentioned it.
We're walking out talking about it, and this dad, that's what his kid had already seen. He was like, "Oh yeah, I think that's where they're going next too." And you can tell that dude was a super nerd too.
Oh, yeah.
He's been to them and he's read all of them. But again, Spider-Man: Far From Home, super fun. Again, this is non-spoiler, so we really can't say too much other than go see it. To me, it's definitely worth watching, worth buying.
My grade, I'm going to give it, I've been struggling with this, but I can't be too harsh. I'm going to give it a B-. And for me, that's kind of a low grade for an MCU film. I feel like people, they kill DCEU films. They kill them for any kind of thing that's wrong or this or that. And they don't kill, they're afraid to kill the MCU films. I'm not afraid. I love all movies. I'm not a comic book fan. I need to read more. You got Batman Year One, my boy gave me here. I'm going to check that out. But I got to give it a B-. And I'll go into our spoiler talk. Why a B-?
I think, you know, it's not a perfect film, but as far as a Spider-Man standalone film is considered, I got to give it an A minus. It's not an A plus. It's not a solid A, because I agree. I did see some of the holes that you mentioned and we discussed about last night. But if you were Peter Parker, put yourself in his shoes. You just lost Tony Stark. You went through this traumatic experience. You came back, and a lot of people that were, you've been gone for 5 years. They haven't, and they kind of touch on that in this movie. So you disappeared. You were snapped away for 5 years. You come back, the world's passed you by. He's a guy out of time, kind of like Captain America. I think they did a great job even, analyzing that aspect of it. So they also did a good job covering what happens after Endgame. Because I always thought to myself as well, like, okay, how are they going to go ahead and move forward? Like, okay, again, half of the world's population, disappeared and then came back. There's going to be some ramifications. And they touched on that in this movie, which is what I love. So, again, I'm going to give it an A- and say, go watch it. Go support the film. Again, like you mentioned, it's summertime. There's not a lot of competition out there. You can only go see what else is out there.
Definitely go watch it. Definitely go watch it. But with that being said, we'll see you next time on our spoiler review. Please like and subscribe. Definitely subscribe. Definitely watch our reviews that are coming out weekly and almost daily sometimes. And with that being said, adios.